Sometimes as a recreation planner you'll be required to inventory in backcountry campsites. They might be other use sites, trailheads, trails and streams. So today we're going to start taking a look at measurements on a backcountry campsite. I've got a pretty faint one behind me here. You can see that there's a tent area right down in here, and then there are a couple of social trails running off. Going off in this direction is off to a water source, probably a spring, and then going off this direction is to probably what they used as a kitchen. It's probably a site that's recovering than getting used a lot. Or it might be just the case where people are really switching to stoves more and not building fires as much. So every job, every district is going to have slightly different criteria and because different things are important. However, they're fairly standard across the board. This is the form we're going to use for this class. Expect yours will be different since I created it just for this class. And we start out with just giving our names. So there's only one of me today. And an ID site, so this is number 1. And then we've got to do this thing called a quick class, and then we're going to go through and hit these other columns, of which their descriptions are on the back of our form. So the quick class, those criteria are down here at the bottom, the quick class for each campsite. And we're going to base it mostly on vegetation and the surface. So we're looking at this site right out here, and we're comparing it to the ground around it. And we're in deep trees, so we do have an awful lot of pine duff. If you move out into a bit of an opening, you'll see that the vegetation is quite a bit thicker. So we don't want to compare it to over there. Instead, maybe we want to compare it over here, which is still deep under the trees. All right, so here we are taking a look at this campsite. Looks like a tent site. And the quick class right here, number 1, ground vegetation flattened but not permanently injured. Minimal physical change except for possibility of simple rock fireplace. Okay, I don't think that fits our place. The vegetation is not just flattened, it's actually gone. So number 2, ground vegetation worn away around the fireplace or center activity. Yeah, definitely it's worn away from this tent area. The fireplace is a ways away. 3, ground vegetation lost on most of the site. Humus and litter are still present. Yes, we have that in all but a few areas. The tent site itself, but the whole campsite still has some vegetation around it. So we're getting close. Number 4, bare mineral soil obvious, tree roots exposed on the surface. You know, only right there in the center are we seeing bare soil. Just, yeah, one scuff. So I don't think we need to go that far on our evaluation, our quick. And then the 5th one, soil erosion is obvious, trees reduced in vigor and dead. So I don't think we're there. So our quick class, we're choosing between, let's see, ground vegetation worn away, and the center of activity, which in this case is the tent, and ground vegetation lost on most of the site, but litter still present. Yeah, if we have to, I want to pick 2.5. Yeah, I'm not sure your boss is going to let you do that. So if I think about the whole big area, then I think we can just say it's worn around the fireplace or center of activity, which is the tent site. So it's not a bad site. I'm going to give it a rating of 2. All right, now we need to switch over here and start using the back side of the form. So here's our form, the one that we started with at campsite 1. Quick class, we gave it a rating of 2. So next on our form, the next column is density of vegetation, and here's another form flipped upside down. Density of vegetation is on the back with respect to surrounding vegetation, so that's a good reminder. Same as surrounding, we already decided that it's not. Moderately less dense than surrounding, yes. Considerably less, well, we decided no. So this is going to get a 3. And our next column, composition of the vegetation. So composition with respect to surrounding vegetation. Same as surrounding, moderately dissimilar, significantly dissimilar. So composition would say, what's the mix of grasses, little tree sprouts getting going, and then forbs, flowers, so on. So it's moderately dissimilar, because when we look over here, we have small bushes, we have forbs, and we have grass tufts. But out here in the middle, we have a few grasses right there on the edges, but otherwise it's dissimilar. So I would say right here in the center, it's saying with respect to surrounding vegetation, same, moderately dissimilar, significantly dissimilar. And since we're really down to grasses, I'm going to go with 5, so that changed pretty quickly. The composition of the vegetation, which we know that grasses do a lot better than forbs with trampling. Okay, total area. So we're going to have to do some measurements here, so we're going to come back to that. Barren core area. Absent. No, we definitely have a barren core area. 5 to 50 feet of barren core square feet. We're going to have to go and measure that. So time to pull out the tape measure, and we're going to do a total campsite measurement, and then we're going to do a barren core area measurement. I have a 50-foot tape. I can put the tent stake in the ground and see if I get close to 24 feet here, which is what I just walked off. Let's do it easy. Let's call this 30 feet. And then our crosswise measurement as, let's see, where did we end up? Right there at about 18 feet. So 30 by 18 feet is 540. So we are going to come look at total area of campsite, less than 20 square feet, 21 to 100, 101 to 500 square feet, and we're going to just barely go into number 4. So between 500 and 1,000 square feet. So that gives us a category 4 up here. So barren core area measurement is our next one, and I got 8 feet across and stretched it out here to 11 feet of the, this is where the tent appears to have been. So we're going to take a look at its rating here. And barren core area, sorry about that. Absent, no, we definitely have one. 5 to 50 feet, now it's a little bit bigger, so it goes into category 3. So, writing down category 3 for bear. Alright, then we're going to take a look at site development next. Campsite development. Let's see, that's... There we go. Windbreaks, paraphernalia, absent, trash, seats, minimal, firing, absent, or scarce. In this exact site, there is no firing. Why don't we just take a look at this site. Trash, windbreaks, we're not seeing trash or windbreaks. Firings aren't right here. Paraphernalia, absent. So looking around, you know, there's kind of a definition. There's a stump there and another one on the other side. probably were sat on. It's hard to say anybody brought them here just for that purpose. So I'd say we probably don't want to call that windbreaks, seats, fire rings. So that takes us back here to number 1. Windbreaks, paraphernalia absent, trash, and seats minimal, fire rings absent or scarce. The ones that we didn't even look at are over here. 3 trash windbreaks, seats, mostly moderate. I should find some pictures of that for you. Trash windbreak seats, mostly moderate, some heavy. Trash windbreak seats, fire rings, paraphernalia, mostly heavily developed. So by this one, campsite development, we're pretty light on this one, so we're going to write a number 1 in there. So on our form, litter and duff, number 6 is next, so let's see what it says about those. Litter and duff, trampling barely discernible, some needles broken, scattered cones, and yeah, the cones are scattered away. They're mostly gone, at least here in the core. You do find them out here. The duff is trampled and scattered, and vegetation is missing in the core, and it's thin around that in the area that we measured. So instead, moderately trampled, needles broken, compacted, yes, they're in the center, and very few cones. So 2 fits pretty well. Heavily trampled, clumped, pulverized, cones absent. Oh, pulverized and cones absent. I don't think we're that far along. Let's keep looking if it were a more used site. Litter more or less absent, pulverized. Litter in this case doesn't mean human trash. It means the litter that falls off of trees. So branches, sticks, leaves, needles. Okay, yeah, so careful on that kind of litter. Litter more or less absent, pulverized, ground into the soil. And then the 5th one, litter, cones, and duff completely absent, which just means bare soil. So litter and duff, we're moderately here, so we'd be moving up on 6 and writing in a 2. Social trails. So let's take a look at what they're looking for. 1 is none, not having any. 2 trails discernible. 2 trails discernible for number 3. 1 to 2 trails well developed. 3 or more trails more or less discernible. 3+ trails developed. So social trails, these are not the trails that the Forest Service put in. These are ones that have just been created by users for use. And I'd say we have two trails that are discernible. They're not well developed, so let's just go take a look at those. So walking out here at the end, you can see that there is a route that people take, and that is out to the little stream and the spring that's out across that open meadow there. Okay, so coming back to the site, here's our main tent area. And walking off to this side, it's less obvious, but there is a bit of a route that just disappears pretty soon. So barely discernible, but there is one, and this does lead off to a fireplace area, but you know, the connection isn't very good, so that might actually be used by some other site or stop being used. So social trails, we gave a 3. Mutilations. Sounds truly awful, but really what they're doing is talking about the trees, how many people have carved their names, hatchet marks in the trees, little saw marks, mutilations. This site's pretty good. I'm going to walk a little ways away to another one so I can show you some of these. This site is, well, we'll take a look around and decide. I'm walking around looking at the trees, looking particularly for the mutilations, if there are any. And these are pretty clean trees. So this is not a place where people have come with a hatchet and chopped up the trees. It's not the kind of tree that gets their names carved in them as much. There are wounds in these trees, so expect those. These are old knot holes where branches used to grow when it was younger. But those branches are gone. But there aren't, you know, the hatchet marks, the saw marks, and the name carvings. I'm going to walk just a little ways away. I think I saw some aspen with names on it. So here's an aspen probably 100 feet away with the classic heart, someone's initials, another older heart, but you're getting the idea that these are mutilations, different though than hatchet and saw marks. So number 8, asking about mutilations that we just walked around and looked at. I would say that we are in the none area, which is unusual. 1 to 2, 3 to 5, highly obtrusive, and so yeah, we're going to go with a number 1. And then the last thing we would do is sum all of these up, and then eventually, as we continue on down the form and stop at a bunch more sites, we will compare. That's going to become the index that we compare. And it'll also be interesting to see how it compares up here to the quick class category, because very quickly we gave this a 2, which is pretty lightly used. Alright, let's do some math. Running across our form here, it all adds up to 22. So now we just need to do a bunch more sites. So before we head out to do our additional sites, now, or we could have done it at the beginning, is back here under ID there's an asterisk. We gave it the name of number 1, but what we need to do is sit down, write, or eventually type, and add a page of numbered identification descriptions. Yeah, you probably have a protocol for wherever you're going. You have to type out latitude and longitude, which is great. You'll probably be carrying a GPS. You might have to do the map and compass method and have some obvious landmark. Fortunately, most campsites that you'll be inventorying are going to be around lakes and streams, viewpoints. So usually there's a trail, other obstacles, not obstacles, objects out there that you can look around and identify and say, okay, I've gone this many degrees, this many steps off of this trail junction or this corner of the lake. And a map's not a bad idea to get a general area. What you've got to be thinking about is, how is the next person going to find this? So, and usually we have to do it without putting tags out on trees, because they're probably going to get yanked off. With the thought in mind, someone else needs to come and find this spot. It might be in 5 years, it might be in 10. So I've moved away from that campsite that we just did measurements on and walked over to a very different area, and you can see that we have quite a collection of logs, seats for sitting on, even this nice cute one that somebody has made with a saw, or that's a chainsaw mark over on that one. So yeah, this is a site that hasn't been used in a while. You can see that the fires have not been burned here for a couple years probably, but more of that crude furniture paraphernalia sitting around. Probably a couple of hatchet marks in this tree. Looks like somebody had either cut or wrapped a rope cable around this tree. Didn't seem to kill it, so still a mutilation.